the outside looking in, many of our lives look exceptional. We've got the stellar careers, the flawless marriages and families, the packed social calendars. We do an amazing job at creating this picture perfect existence for the world to see. And our obsession with perfection makes sense, right? Because we live in this high performance, capitalistic driven society that profits off of the devotion of our human production. And we're consistently inundated with a 24-hour information cycle that expects our emotional engagement with every single headline. And I mean, think about it. If we were to consume substances at the same level as our obsessive need for perfection, approval, and achievement, we'd be facing a critical global intervention. And so it should be no shock to any of us that our burnout and workplace stress levels are at an all time high, that women account for 80% of all chronic illnesses, that in the United States, the second leading cause of death for children and young adults is suicide. And though we are the most virtually connected generation, the rising epidemic of our time is loneliness. But it makes sense, right? Because we love a performative mask. But what if I told you that beneath the veneer of success, many of us are running on fumes? Yeah. That we're all feeling some growing sense of overwhelm, apathy, and disconnection in our day to day lives. And instead of leaning in and getting curious about that indifference, we overcompensate by pushing through, faking it until we make it, producing, consuming, performing more. Because if we're being honest, apathy is often viewed as an enemy to be conquered, not an emotion to be embraced and examined. But what if apathy is not the enemy? What if it's a gift? A gift that tells us, informs us that we have come to the end of ourselves. Not the end of our lives, but the end of a pseudo self we create to survive in oppressive systems like capitalism, colonialism, racism, patriarchy, that requires a more mechanical version of who we are. And this is not just an abstract thought. I actually lived this truth. There was a time in my life where I was so committed to the performance. I was so committed to the hustle and grind. I'd spend my work days being shuttled around in black Escalades, doing television and radio commentary, and being the strong friend for every single person in my life who had an emotional need. And every single evening, I'd be on the rooftop of my high rise, overlooking the nation's capital, contemplating whether anyone would care if I jumped. Until one day, the boxes that I created to compartmentalize my personal and professional life caved in. And I found myself fainting on a sidewalk, having what my therapist would call a psychogenic blackout. And if you're not familiar with what a psychogenic blackout is, think of it as if your computer has way too many tabs open to the point where it literally just freezes, restarts, or shuts down. It was my mind's way of saying, girl, enough is enough. And there comes a time in our lives when the adversity, the trauma that fuels our ambition is no longer sustainable enough to hide behind the shadow of who we have become. High functioning achievement addicts who mask our inner apathy with performance and busyness. And you may not have had a rock bottom psychogenic blackout moment like I have, but how many of you know what it's like to live someone else's vision out for your life? To be chasing after a lifestyle and career that looks good to everyone else, but feels completely hollow to you. Because we have been programmed to judge apathy as the greatest threat to humanity, when in all actuality, it is one of the most telling systems that we live in a repressive culture that dehumanizes, exploits, and erodes the very essence of our humanness. So when I say that apathy is a gift, what I am not saying is that we should go on an all-out rampage and abandon all of our responsibilities and relationships. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that if we want to live in authenticity, if we want to live in the fullness of our integrity, one where we prioritize our inner experience and well-being, that it is okay for us to care differently. It is okay for us to care less about how our lives look to everyone else externally and more about how they feel to us from the inside out. Because when we avoid apathy, when we suppress it, it only deepens the shame and guilt we feel. It traps us in these relentless cycles of burnout, isolation, and unfulfillment. But when we're able to integrate the full range of our emotions, even the ones we perceive as negative, like apathy, we are met with a powerful ally to our evolution. And when I think of an ally, I think of an overprotective sibling who steps in when life is just hitting a little bit too hard, right? Apathy comes in completely unfazed by the emotional manipulation of the status quo. It's not cool or careless. It's a protective shield until we giving us the opportunity and the freedom to simply just be and conserve our energy when the world is too much to bear. But like any overprotective sibling, sometimes apathy doesn't know when to let go. And as we cultivate in self-awareness and we begin to advocate for our own humanity, we have the power to transmute apathy from being an overprotective coping mechanism to being a greater source of wisdom and insight that urges us to reassess and realign with the core values that informs and our inherent divine worth and our essence. Because despite our societal conditioning that has trained us to live and work like machines, we are not robots. We were not created to hustle, pay bills, post our highlights on social media, and die. We are inherently divine, creative, intelligent human beings, not human doing. And believe it or not, nothing human, not joy, not pain, not even apathy, can be foreign to us. And it doesn't matter if you're a successful business leader, an overworked employee, a strong friend, a woman who self-silences, a man who feels invisible to his family, or a student who is done with the extracurricular activities and academics. None of us are exempt from feeling the effects of a toxic culture that was never designed with our human thriving in mind. And the only way we get out is through. The only way that we can rise above and beyond our inner rage and apathy is if we tell the truth about it through our courage, our transparency, our connection, and our compassion for one another and ourselves. So I want to challenge us all that the next time you find yourself feeling or experiencing feelings of apathy, or someone you are committed to loving experiencing those feelings, sit with it. Don't judge it. Don't suppress it. And don't try to perform out of it. Hold space for yourself and others. Honor the divinity of our human experience. Because we may not all have our rooftop and bridge moment. But the truth is, we are all human living in this world. And so we all know what it feels like to be desensitized, disconnected, and overwhelmed. Because it is my belief that when we shine the light on apathy and tell the truth about those negative emotions, we offer each other a space to create deeper, authentic connection and belonging. One where we can rip off the superficial mask that we've been carrying for generations. And we get to look at one another face to face in the fullness of our integrity and our transparency. And we get to say, I see you. You are enough. Your worth is not predicated on your productivity or how much you give. And right here in this present moment, you are worthy to feel. Thank you.